Cool, we're ready to go. Okay, cool. Hey guys, welcome back. I guess we're starting up. Let me check my sound, make sure I'm working here today. Okay. Oh, there's my head and there's my talk. All right, great. Thanks for coming in. Welcome, everybody. I'm Christopher from Dinosaur Omelet. If you read down below, it says Angela and Christopher. Angela's my wife. She's unfortunately, I don't know if she's coming in for this evening for a chit-chat or for a discussion on the AVIAN respiratory system, which I have to tell you is really, really amazing. If you guys haven't been familiarized with this yet, this is really a cool subject. It's complex, but I made it pretty simple to understand. And that's what we'll be talking about tonight. I really enjoyed learning about this more deeply. I knew about it, but not at the depth that I went into over the last week. So it's good information. Anyway, welcome in. If you guys are new and you find a motorcycle in the background, if you find what we're doing here useful or of value, I'd appreciate it if you give a like or even subscribe to our channel. Our focus here on this channel is education, knowledge, to be productive, and to gain the tools up in our heads to be able to do what we want to do and achieve our goals here in our little homesteads. Let me check comments. Katrina's in there. Hey, hon. Hi, everybody. Thanks for stopping in, regular folks. Good to see you. Yeah, so our goal here is education on this channel and reaching out and connecting with our community. When I originally started this channel, it was more like a customer outreach thing because we're a small hatchery in southern Lancaster and wanted to have some a meeting ground for our customers to have information. I could give them, oh, hey, you want to know how to put your quail on a brooder? You want this, here's a video. Because we wound up explaining over and over again the same thing. But I really enjoy giving out this info and teaching, and I enjoy learning. So hopefully you guys find this of use. I usually start talking about the subject 5 minutes in. Might start earlier today. I've been using SteamYard. It's been giving me trouble at the 30-minute mark, so I may start quicker. Knowledge is power. Yes, Miss Verna. It's absolutely correct. I always tell the story. I should really do a whole video on my, what it was like growing up. When I was a kid, I was a horrible, horrible student, got E's and F's, bad outcast. I was one of those kids you would have expected he's going nowhere kind of thing. But, life changed. As I got older, I started teaching myself and self-discipline and being kind and caring about other people and thinking forward for, empathy towards others and service to others. And really that's what these videos are really about. To be honest with you, it's a free gift for other people who were like where I was at one time without knowledge. So to give something to somebody for free that will improve the quality of their life and they can share with their family, their kids, and it stays with them. So it's nice to do that. Anyway, I'm going to start in 2 seconds. Down below, oh, you know what? If you guys, I did a new infographic chart for this talk this week. I highly suggest you check it out and download it. It's free. It's how chickens breathe. It's a chart. I'm actually going to bring a big version of this up and discuss it and show you this chart so you can understand the different parts of the avian respiratory system. But yeah, download that. There's a bunch of good information in the description. I also always like to tout this thing, or how to raise quail pamphlet. If you guys, we raise quail. Angela raised silky chickens, bantams, and quail. We have Jumbo Coturnix quail. She's a silky expert. But yeah, we raise Jumbo Coturnix quail and we sell them. So the customers don't really, a lot of them are new, don't know what to do. So I give them this booklet, free little pamphlet. Tells them everything they need to know to start. So check it out, free. Let me know what you think. And I think we're about ready to begin. If you have any questions about what we're discussing, let me know. Okay? The reason I keep looking over here, I have a monitor for the comments. And this is being broadcast live, so I'm trying to take a look at the comments at the same time, see if anybody has any questions. Okay, let me get to I take notes all the time. I try to stay organized. I'm going to go through this, like I said, not too quickly, but I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can to avoid this flipping in the middle of my talk, because I'll be using charts. And I don't want SteamYard screwing me up. All right, avian respiratory. The avian respiratory system, how chickens breathe, cool, and survive, and why this topic's important. So I'm probably not going to read too much off of that. I'm going to wing this. If you've watched us, we always talk about cleanliness of the coop. I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but why is that important? It's because they're respiratory systems. These are delicate systems. They're intricate systems, and they are very unlike mammalian breathing systems. So how does the bird respiratory system function, and why does it function the way it does? So it is designed in a very, very specific manner. The avian respiratory system, the way it's designed, is to facilitate their light weight and flight. If they did not breathe the way they breathe, they would not be able to fly. It is fundamentally important that they have the structure in their respiratory system the way it is, which is very different from our mammal friends, such as humans. It is very important they have that structure the way they do to facilitate flying. Otherwise, they couldn't fly. They'd be ground-dwelling creatures, and we wouldn't see them. Now, did they evolve from dinosaurs? I don't know. I like Jurassic Park, but it's a Jurassic Park shirt. So yeah, their respiratory system is built very differently. And so what I'd like to talk about so you guys can understand before I show you and discuss the avian respiratory system is let's just talk about our own, because we understand this. What are we doing when we breathe, right? Take a deep breath. What happens? We expand and we exhale. We're bringing in clean, fresh air, oxygen-rich air, breathing it in. In our lungs, there's gas exchange taking place. We breathe it out, okay? We have a diaphragm that facilitates this. It contracts and expands our lungs. We're bringing air in and out all day long, sleeping, awake, because it's very critical, of course. And no, the chicken and the birds do not do this. They do not breathe in and fill up their lungs like that. They do not expand their lungs. This is extremely intriguing. You know what? I'm going to break out my chart, my thing here to show you guys this. So they don't actually breathe in and expand their lungs. I'm going to show you this so you know what it is. It looks like a big sloppy mess, I know. This is an above view picture of a bird. Here's his head. There's a little beak coming down the trachea. These are some air sacs. I'm going to explain that. The red is the lungs, and there. So we're looking down on the bird. See his rib cage? Okay, just as a reference. So we mammals, when we're breathing in, we contract and expand our lungs. Hello from New Mexico. Hey, Susan, what's going on, hon? Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, when we breathe, we, again, expand our lungs. And way deep down in our lungs, the gas exchange takes place, and we expel used air, right? CO2, oxygen goes into our blood, and we get rid of the CO2. Now, there's something interesting about the way this lung system works compared to ours. Now, when we exhale, what are we doing? We're getting rid of most of our air. When we exhale, we breathe out. We don't breathe all the way out. We don't go, get rid of all the air. So what does that mean? Our mammal lungs still have a volume of spent air in there. So we still have some used stale air sitting in our lungs. Every time we take another breath, we're still mixing it with already spent air. Okay, so we're not getting always in every breath clean air. We're getting spent air. The avian respiratory system does not have this problem because they are unidirectional. The air does not go in and out of their lungs. Oh, wait a minute. I got a pointing stick. I'm not quite professional enough, so I'm actually using a chopstick. So the air does not go in and out of their lungs like us humans. There is unidirectional flow. Air is only going one way through their lungs. I'm going to explain why that's happening, why this is built this way, and why it's important for flight. So if we have, as human beings, mammals, we have a percentage of air in our lungs that's spent, and we're taking in a breath, that means it's not really the most efficient deep breath. It's good for us mammals, for the way we evolved and for what we're doing. It's good for our design, but it's not good for their design. Why? The bird's flight is extremely expensive, metabolically speaking. It's a lot of energy to do that, and they need extreme oxygen, they need oxygen-rich blood to perform their flight. Without that oxygen-rich blood, they would not be able to fly. They wouldn't have the capacity for flight. So they need to have oxygen, high oxygen at all times. Particularly birds are flying way, way up high in the sky where it's a thinner atmosphere, there's not as much air. So these lungs are designed for continual airflow. The other thing about bird lungs is they don't contract. They're not expanding and contracting like ours. They're rigid. They stay about in the same shape. And I'll get a little more into that in a second. I'm trying to give you guys a brief, fundamental overview of what's going on here. So we humans, mammals, breathe in and out. Our lungs expand. Theirs do not. Air goes in ours and comes out. Not with the bird. Air is going to be transported. And I'm going to show you what all these funny looking things are because it's very important. The airflow in the lungs for the bird, AVIAN respiratory, is only going in one direction, towards their face, towards up. It's not going in and out. So what's happening? And how's that air getting down there? Going back to the structure and why this respiratory system is important for flight, there's something else. Anybody want to take a guess? Oh, it's aquatic news. What's up, man? Hi, aquatic. You could do a fish lungs video, too. I'm doing bird lungs today. This is actually really, really fascinating. I like this kind of stuff. So what else is going on? Why is the respiratory system very important for their flight? Not just the oxygen-rich blood that they're going to be able to get because they're unidirectional airflow in the lungs. Okay, we have what's called alveoli deep down in the lungs. Those little air sacs, those little teeny tiny air sacs. Well, there's a lot of surface area in our mammal lungs to have that gas exchange. They don't have this. They have something called parabronchi, which are little tubular structures in which the air is flowing through and across, and that's going to give the structure a little bit to the lung, as well as the surface area for the gas exchange. It's a very big surface area. It's just a different component from our alveoli and our lungs. The structure of this bird is very important for flight as well because the bird needs to be lightweight. Now this is the other part of the respiratory system. I'm going to quickly, or if this is becoming word salad, please let me know. I'll slow down and explain stuff. Where is the air going when the bird breathes in? It does not go into the lungs. In fact, when they take a breath, they need 2 cycles of breath. In, out, to get rid and to cycle through the first breath. Why is this? Unlike us mammals and many creatures, the bird respiratory system evolved or was designed with a series of air sacs. They're kind of hard to see here. That's why I said download this lovely chart. Where's my lovely chart? This lovely chart I made that's for free down there. That's a little better version of this. There's these air sacs, anterior air sacs and posterior air sacs, as well as what's called an intraclavicular. This is a center air sac. This is where the air goes before it goes in the lungs and then after it passes through the lungs. Why is this important for the bird's flight as well? Well, the bird needs to be lightweight. These air sacs take up volume for the space of this creature's construction, for its body shape. So it's taking up volume and decreasing its mass. You know, you have a bird, let me use my hands. You have a bird like this, tweet, 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 flying around. You take a while those air sacs, make them more efficient. With no air sacs, he falls down. His body structure becomes more dense, and it's not as airy and not as light for volume, for which his wings will be designed, and he will not be able to fly. So that's the other reason that this air sac system, there are 9, by the way. There's 4 sets of what's called bilateral air sacs. Bilateral meaning left and right, one on each side. And there's 1 central air sac, this called intraclavicular air sac up front. But they're very important for the structure of the bird to keep it lightweight. So when he's flying, his body structure is not dense, and his flight, his wings can accommodate his structure. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. Aquatic news. This is interesting. This is actually very interesting. I spent a long, long time reading and learning about this because I'm like a nerd. You know, I'm the guy at the party. Oh, yeah, well, actually, let me tell you about bird lungs. I like doing that kind of stuff. So I got a new well, actually, to discuss about. All right. So, yeah, we're talking about the air sacs. So what are these air sacs? The bird takes a breath. This is his snoot. So he has nares or his nostrils. Birds breathe through their nostrils. They don't breathe through their mouths. What? Is this true? Yeah, they're not breathing through their mouth unless they're distressed. They may be panting, and when they're doing their panting, that's expiration for cooling. So that's a cooling mechanism. We discussed this in previous videos. They have cooling methods, and one of them is to expire air, get rid of that moisture, get rid of that air, and dissipate heat through their breath. Okay, but their normal breathing is done through their big bird snoots. They breathe it through the nostril. So what's happening? They're taking air in, and I'm going to explain the breathing cycle because it's kind of interesting. First breath, sniff. They sniff their air in. It comes down the trachea. They're sniffing. That's a trachea. Sniffing past. We're not concerned about this sac. This is up front. Air does not go here. It's bypassing the lungs. That big sniff of air is bypassing the lungs, and it comes down to these air sacs. Now, the air sacs do expand, but they don't expand like with mammal lungs with a diaphragm. They do have musculature to them, so they're going to be using their physiology to their skeletal system and their muscles to contract and expand some of these air sacs. So it's drawing air down into these air sacs. These are where the air is reserved. It's taken in. First breath, bird nose, because they breathe through their snoot. They take that air down, bypassing the lungs. We get air when we breathe when it goes into our lungs. So this is counterintuitive to us. What do you mean they're breathing and they're not getting air in their lungs? Oh, hold on. Yeah, they're breathing and they're not getting air to their lungs. It's bypassing the lungs to go into the air sacs. Remember, these air sacs are critical for the structure of the animal and its lightweight physiology. So they do need to have them filled. So he's breathing in. So that first breath, the air is brought into these air sacs, these posterior air sacs. There's 8 of them. There's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the abdominal air sac, posterior thoracic air sacs. Lots of words. If you want to learn lots of words, download that wonderful free chart that I drew for this video. So when they breathe out, they take their first breath in, doesn't go into the lungs, bypass the lungs to fill up the air sacs. Their exhale, so one inhale, one exhale. So the exhale is unidirectional. All the air going through these lungs is going through only one way, not like ours, in, out, in, out. This is part of the efficiency of the oxygen absorption. The air is going through one way through these lungs, unidirectional, passing through the parabronchi, which that's a nice, cool science term, which would be, I guess, most closely related to our alveoli, the little air sacs in our lungs, but they're not air sacs. They're like tubes. Look it up on the internet. It's kind of interesting. But there's a vast surface area for that air to pass over those parabronchi. And then that air that got pushed out from these posterior air sacs with the fresh, clean air goes through the lungs. Gas exchange occurs. The oxygen is brought to the blood. The CO2 is put in there. It's stale air. And that stale air is going to go into these anterior air sacs. Okay? What's cool is this interclavicular air sac, this big center air sac, that's attached to his syrinx, and the syrinx is the vocal box, like our larynx. So they have a syrinx, and the air supply for that is coming from here. It's not up here somewhere. And birds do what birds do. All right? Now we got a lot of chatter here from the aquatic. What are we saying? Technically, we are supposed to be nostril breathers as well. Quite correct. It's the only way we can truly fill our lungs up with O2 is through our nostrils. That's absolutely right. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was reading about that right before that because I was curious. It's like, how do humans really utilize their oxygen intake as best they could? We train. Like training for that is the best way. And yeah, breathing through your nostril, man. Thanks for mentioning that. What books would you recommend to learn more about avian anatomy, physiology, and pathology? Papa Bjorn. That's a great question. My answer is I have no clue, actually. I go in, I read, so I look at, not to be like goofy, but I like to look at university websites. There's a lot of good university research on avian physiology. Texas A&M, University of Kentucky. There's a bunch of them all over the world, actually, and even the foreign. If you're really interested in the science end of this, even the foreign universities, you can translate them now really easily. But yeah, when I'm doing research for one of these, I want to, if it's a complex, and this is actually very, very, very complex if you're really doing a deep learning about the respiratory system. But when I do the research, I want to find something that piques people's interests, that's, there's contextual relevancy, and is easy to understand, and something that we have, like, that we can have context to. Like, I try to, this is very, very different from our human lungs, the things we're used to, but we can have a kind of general understanding. Yes, their lungs are designed to take in oxygen just like ours. They breathe, we breathe, but there is a big difference in the way that air is getting in here and what's actually happening between us and this bird. Fundamentally, we want oxygen in our blood. Same with this guy, but it's happening a little differently, or a lot differently. So anyway, yeah, that's a really good question. I really appreciate that. And I'm a nerd, so I read books, but as far as anatomy, physiology books, I couldn't recommend anything. So I'm not going to make something lie up or try to BS it. I don't know, what was a deleted message? Why are they deleting messages? Aquatic, for some reason my Nightbot deleted your messages. I don't know why. I'm not doing that. It's like that stupid bot that I have working here. Loads of research. Sorry, fat fingered it. No, I don't know why they gave you a timeout. It's not. Sorry, buddy. Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm not stupid. I read, but I do like to do the research online, and I'll go to university. There's a lot of good, like I said, there's a lot of really good university level, university papers that you can research and just get. And I like to run through what do you call it? The abstracts. Go through the abstracts, see if it's got the meat that I'm looking for. Okay. I don't go to, like, a lot of people, and I warn them, and I'll get back to teaching this in a second. I warn them when we started doing these, people are getting their information like Facebook and social media, which is, it's like a landmine. You may have really bright, brilliant people who know exactly what they're talking about, giving advice alongside somebody who has no idea what's going on. And the viewer, the person seeking the information, they can't discern. They don't know which one is legitimate or illegitimate. If I find any books, I'll pass them on. Maybe some veterinary books. That would be awesome. I promise you. Well, Aquatic, I went through. I'm like, I don't know why it eliminated it. I don't know how to bring it back. But I appreciate you putting that in there. I clicked on it, and I can't bring your comments back. All right, let me move on, because I forget what I was talking about. And this thing will flip me sideways in about another 7 minutes. So what were we talking about? We took a breath. We bypassed the lungs. Posterior air sacs fill up. Bird pushes this air through exhalation. Number one, exhaling the first time. And the air goes into the lungs, absorbs the oxygen. Stale air gets pushed up into these anterior air sacs up here. And there's a couple over here. And again, the air sacs just aren't for storing air, to provide structure to the bird, to make the bird into a bird shape, to help make it fly, to make it light. It's buoyant. And also, too, like I mentioned earlier, the efficiency of the oxygen, being that there's no stale air in these lungs, allows them to go way up high when they're flying, where the air is thinner and there's not as much oxygen. Okay, cool. So we talked about breath one in, breath one out. We're filling out these air sacs. Breath two comes in, and we're going to fill the air sacs again. And it's similar. It's going to be going through, and this is with this exhale. That's when that first breath that took place prior gets pushed out. Okay, does that make sense? First breath, breath number one comes in, fills air sacs, goes through the lungs, absorbs oxygen when he exhales. So breath comes in, fills lungs, exhale one, goes through lungs, gets stored in anterior air sacs. Breath number two comes in, fills air sacs, exhales, fills lungs, pushes this air out from the anterior air sacs where the stale air was stored and refills. And it needs to refill because it's giving that bird structure. It's making him hollow. Remember the hollow bones? You remember that? You hear kids, oh, the birds have hollow bones. They're called pneumatic bones, air bones, pneumatic, like pneumatic air gun. Right. I'm getting a lot of use out of this stick. I should sell these. $33. Professional teaching stick. All right, moving on. I wonder if it helps with pressure differential at various heights in flight. That is an actual excellent question. I like brainy questions. And the one thing I don't do is BS. I'm not going to say I know or even take a guess. I mean, I try to logic process stuff. And a lot of things you can logic process, especially if you have some background information, guys. This is why I encourage education and knowledge. It's like you can't know everything, but if you have a base understanding of some fundamentals, they really transfer into many, many, many different things. And you can make inferences from some fundamentals about what's going on. This is a good example. What's the objective of this bird breathing? To get oxygen. Just like us, we need oxygen. He wants efficient oxygen use. We are optimizers, like all systems. Systems seek optimization, and they want to work as efficiently as possible. It's good design. That's what a good design is. These guys are exquisitely designed. I mean, they're really, really amazing. Okay, I bet it does. Oh, so it's like a multi-stage filter system that is self-cleaning. That's an excellent way to put it. I think that would be a good metaphor. Oh, I'm going to have to rewatch from the beginning. This is awesome. Oh, thanks, Katie. Yeah, this is actually very interesting. Katie, go down into the description because I made a real simple to understand chart for this video describing this respiratory system. Okay, it's not about, I think that was the fundamental stuff. I mean, that was the general stuff. Like I said, this is very complex. If you want to learn more deeper about it, there's tons of information on this, and you can go deep, 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 deep. We're just going shallow enough to have a practical understanding. All right, so I'm going to go give a synopsis of what we discussed, and I'm going to move on to the third half because I am a scientist, and we use 3 halves. So we're going into the third half after this. All right, so the objective of the avian respiratory system is twofold, I think. I would present it as twofold. One is going to be efficient oxygenation via a unidirectional or one-directional pathway through the lungs in which the air is coming from posterior air sacs and only going in one direction. So these lungs, this is a cool part, never have a quantity of stale air. It's always fresh air. They don't, like our mammal lungs, hold a quantity of stale air. I don't know if you were here earlier, Katie. When we breathe, we take in fresh air, we exhale stale, used air with the CO2. But what's going on? We still have air in there. We don't go and breathe everything out. So we always have a reservoir of stale air. In fact, what I was reading, it's about 25% more efficient with their air capacity. They're just getting 25% better air, the birds, per volume. Anyway, so this is an efficient oxygen system which is going in one way. This allows flight because flight is expensive. That's the other thing. It is a very expensive thing metabolically to do, so they need a lot of oxygen. Like, think of it like, what do you call it, a sprinter, okay? A high-performance athlete. What are they doing? They're training constantly. We humans have oxygen saturation in our blood at about 95 to 98%. We're not going to boost it up to 100%, and even if we're sucking on the oxygen, you're not going to get it higher. So it's maybe a 1% difference. It's negligible. What we're doing when people train for better oxygen, like hypoxic training or altitude training, is to produce more blood cells to carry more oxygen. But as far as oxygen saturation, that's not really happening. We're sitting at about, like if you're healthy, 98%, right? So these birds, they're getting oxygen all the time. They don't have that stale air in there. The other fundamental thing, very important to their avian respiratory system, are these air sacs. These anterior air sacs, these cervical air sacs, interclavicular air sac, and these posterior air sacs. All of these provide structure to the bird while eliminating the density of the animal's structure. You know, it's not mass, it's not organs, it's not water weight, because we make them very heavy and they fall to the ground. They'd be too heavy to fly. So this allows the structure of the animal, the exchange or the holding and movement of air, and their light weight. It's really fascinating. I mean, if you read about this, fascinating. So it's one of those mind-blowing things. And the funny thing is, I've talked to many poultry owners. I don't think, and like most of them, the vast majority had no idea that's how these creatures function, the birds. Okay, hey Andy Rabbit, what's going on? Papa, I kind of candle a few ways today and they're looking great so far. Thanks for stopping in, Mr. Rabbit. I have my messages down here, Andy, so it's like I miss sometimes. So sorry if I missed any of you guys. All right, cool. So first half we discussed that. We talked about the airflow. We went over the structure. Okay, what was next on my agenda? Because that was the practical stuff about their structure. Does everybody get this? If you guys have any questions about this, please ask me. I did spend a very, very, very long time reading, rereading, researching, not just for this video, but like I said, I like to learn, and this was really fascinating stuff. Okay, why this is efficient. We discussed practical implications for chicken keepers. I'm going to go into that. Like, what is the practical implication for us chicken keepers, poultry raisers, especially chicken keepers? So Angela sells the little puffy chickens. Her, what do you call them? Why am I forgetting this? You know, there's silkies. God, I call them puffy chickens so much. She sells the silky chickens, and they're pets. So why is the respiratory system important in this context? Well, people get these chickens and they want to cuddle them and hold them like babies, okay? And this could be damaging. This may not be good. Why? They have a delicate air system. They don't have a diaphragm. They don't have that muscular structure around their lungs and around these air sacs, particularly the air sacs, to keep the structure around them. So you can compromise these birds' breathing by holding them on their back. You know, people will say, oh, yeah, my chicken is really calm when I hold him on his back. Because he's not breathing, because he's probably not getting as much air, because those air sacs are being compromised from gravity. They rely on gravity for their, what do you call it? For their respiration. They rely on gravity for their body structure and their respiration in these air sacs. So you don't see them sleeping on their back. If you do see a chicken sleeping on his back, get him to a veterinarian. A little chicken joke. Okay. I should replay this for the granddaughter homeschool class. Yeah, that's a great idea, Andy. Actually, this would make a magnificent homeschool subject because it can be explained very simply to a child, because to understand it, what's happening here is not really all that difficult. It's just the explanation of the difference between an adult, or, you know, we're talking about homeschool. If I'm teaching a kid, I'll say the difference between an adult with our lungs, the example I was giving, like how we breathe in and out, and we get big and we breathe out. They don't do that. Their lungs are rigid. They don't expand. Air does not go in and out of them like ours. What's really cool, you know, I tell the kids what's really cool is that air doesn't even go in their lungs when they take a breath. That's really cool. It bypasses, it goes past the lungs, and it fills these air sacs for their next breath, for when they exhale. And then they exhale, and then from the air sac, it's really neat, and it's a really fun thing to teach. And I think, yeah, absolutely, the kids, if you homeschool them, this would be a great subject, or even like an elementary class, or even middle school, or older, because if you can teach. Most of these things you can teach at different levels of complexity, or, you know, at different academic levels. Okay, and kids at home, if you find this interesting, that's awesome. You know, keep looking into it, and you know, learn, always learn. It's a wonderful thing to have an understanding of things. Like I said earlier, I'm the nerd at the party. We'll be talking about politics that they talk about. Oh yeah, did you hear about bird breathing? I bet you didn't know they breathe in one direction. and then you're the cool guy with your bird facts. Alrighty, that was me pushing up my glasses. I actually wear glasses. All right, moving on. So we talked about what this means for us as chicken owners. So people with the buying our silkies, buying Angela's silkies as pets, they want to cuddle them and they want to treat them like puppies or other mammals, but they're not mammals. They're birds. They have these delicate systems, and they can be impeded with by just simply by gravity, by holding them upside down. And the same with children holding chicks. You know, we do give instructions to families like why you have to be careful with children. Children may have a intuition to grab because the bird wants to fly off, and you want to squeeze them real tight. But they have delicate breathing systems, and you can squeeze crush their air pathways pretty easily that way. So you want to be careful. And it's always good to instruct the child how to properly handle the poultry, the birds. They're much more delicate than their mammal buddies. Okay. All right. Chickens have one-way breathing system. Yeah, we talked about that. So we discussed the 9 air sacs, which that's kind of nuts in itself. So there are a lot of air sacs in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this big central one up here, 9. Well, not big, but 9. There's a central one up there where it's not bilateral. There's only one of them. And most importantly, look at all these sacs. Sac, air. What does this mean? These birds, they don't cough. They don't have a big, strong cough reflex. You know, they're delicate. In nature, they don't live in dusty, filthy coops, is what I'm getting at. And their respiratory systems are delicate, and they're susceptible to illness and injury from dusty, filthy coops. That's why I always say, keep the coop clean. You know, not spotless and sterilized like you do in surgery, but you want to keep the thing clean enough to where it's not going to instigate respiratory irritation and stress them out, because that can be quite damaging for them. So, you know, excessive dander, you know, the birds, as they're growing feathers, they produce dander as the feather unfurls, it puts out protein, and they have these dander in the air. Moisture can produce with the bedding in your coop, ammonia buildup. So you want to be careful with how you're maintaining your animal structure, making sure it's maintained, make sure it's clean. Any of that buildup can be damaging to her, and you're going to notice the birds with labored breathing. When we see her in the heat, like right now it's been really hot, and you may see a chicken out there going, they breathe, you see them there jiggling, and people freak out. They're like, oh my God. Oh, see, I went sideways. Always at 37. Well, it's good because we're almost done. Sorry about going sideways. This is StreamYard. Fabulous streaming service. Explore. Oh, thanks, Susan. I thought it was a very interesting thing. That's why I did this. So I'm about finished. But yeah, when you see that chicken breathing, it's called gular fluttering. It's their heat dissipating. When they're panting like that in the sun, they're heat dissipating. They're not in distress. It looks like distress, but they can be in distress. Like there may be some labored breathing if they're having respiratory issues. But in a hot summer, and you see that rapid breathing, it's heat dissipation, because their respiratory system is also very important for the dissipation of heat. That's how they cool off. They don't have sweat glands like us, so they're not evaporating off their skin. They got to breathe out that excess heat. And birds run hot. They're about 104 degrees or so, maybe a little hotter, 104, 106 degrees. They have a high body temperature. They have a high metabolic rate. They're just way up there. All right. Well, I think that does it, because they flipped me sideways again for absolutely no reason. Well, that's okay, because I think we got through this very intriguing subject, and I'm glad I found this pointing chopstick. It was quite helpful. You guys, I thought, like evaporative cooling, exactly. Well, that's what that is. Yeah, they're just getting rid of that moisture, and that's why you always want to keep filling them up with water in the summer, because they do drink a ton, because they're using that not only to hydrate their body, but to cool off. It's not just for their cells, but they're getting rid of that water to keep them cool. Yeah, so this has been, I really liked this subject, and I hope you guys found it useful, even though it turned sideways at the end. I'm building a coop, and people have been asking me for these coop plans. They're smaller coops for Angela. They're like, what are they, 3x2 for her silkies, and they have like an 8-inch nesting box off the end. But they're easy to build, and I'm going to put the plans up, and I'm going to do a video on how I built these things. And, you know, it's easy to build rather than buy, I always say, if you know how to build. And building, the way I see it, like building a wooden structure, simple structure like that, it's kind of like doing a construction paper project, but instead of scissors, you use a circular saw. Just cutting and pasting, or nailing, or screwing. And I'll put that up soon. Taco, thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks, hon. Yeah, thanks all you guys for stopping in. Oh, Nightbot is giving. Oh, okay. Aquatic. I think what happened was the Nightbot took over. There was emojis or something in there in your comments. That's why it was hiding them. I wouldn't do that. I don't do that. Nightbot, you are fired. I'm going to go fire that guy for the next week. So he's not coming back. Well, I'm going to tweak him so he doesn't do that anymore. Thank you very much. If you're new here and you appreciated the information given here, hit the like and subscribe. I would like to develop our channel over the next year or so into a more structured teaching channel. We're getting a nice subscriber. Like this subscriber, we don't have 1 million people on here. It's like 1,000, a little more. But they are the niche individuals that we are seeking. It's not just random people who, oh, this is entertaining sub. No, these are the people who watch us they're doers. They're people who do things. And this is actually pertinent to what they're doing and relative to what they're engaged in. So if you guys are new here and this is of value, hit the sub, because the objective is to provide useful information and to meet people. You know, the COVID thing got me nuts. I was stuck inside, so I met people on the internet. So that's what we're still doing. All right. It's been real. Yes. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. If you have any suggestions for anything for future talk, let me know. And like I said, check out the description and download that respiratory chart and just print it out. It's real. I think it's really interesting. If you found any of this stuff interesting, read that. It's a simplified 5-minute version of this 42-minute talk. Okay? Thank you, guys. See ya. Thanks, Verna, Katie, everybody else. Papa Bjorn, who I just met. Bye, guys.